Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help.
So White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt announced that the Associated Press has been banned from the Oval Office for not honoring the recent renaming of the Gulf of Mexico.
Yesterday, a breathtaking scene occurred live on The View, leaving television watchers in a state of shock. In today's changing political landscape, what began as a routine roundabout swiftly descended into one of the most heated confrontations the show has ever featured. Hollywood icon and seasoned broadcaster Whoopi Goldberg got into a heated argument with rising Republican Karoline Leavitt. The first discussion centered on the increasing influence of young conservative voices, but things quickly took a violent turn. Goldberg expressed doubts on how well the younger generation comprehends the background of the current problems. Go away. It didn't hold back, boldly rebutting Goldberg's arguments and directly contesting her position. The studio became more uncomfortable as tensions increased and voices became more piercing. Then the unexpected moment arrived. Goldberg left her co-hosts and the live audience stunned when she took down her microphone and left the set, clearly agitated. Within minutes, social media was ablaze with comments to the dramatic walk-off, which sparked a flurry of debate. Why Whoopi walked was a big flashpoint in the daytime TV industry and why it was spreading across platforms.
This is her first job. I would like her to do a little homework because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason.
My team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex.
All right.
What'd she say?
She basically said that they were going to give
Oh, God,
unqualified
how boring.
unqualified people jobs.
The Behind the Table podcast needs to apply for White House credentials. They'd love having Joy in that room. I got a question.
So wait a second. So in other words, instead of Bob Woodward, they want Kim.
Every application will be thoroughly examined by our team, and new media candidates who meet the qualifications and have previously fulfilled U.S. Secret Service requirements for access to the White House complex will be granted credentials.
How ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists, but they have been wrong about everything they have said.
The View delivered one of its most dramatic moments in recent memory, leaving viewers stunned. After a tense dispute between veteran broadcaster Whoopi Goldberg and rising Republican firebrand Karoline Leavitt, what started out as a routine panel discussion descended into live TV mayhem. Unfazed, the seasoned panel met Goldberg's gaze and issued a scathing challenge. Whoopi, has your generation resolved every issue facing America? Why do you feel entitled to lecture us? The audience became hushed, feeling as though they were seeing a memorable television event. Tensions continued to rise after that. Goldberg pushed back forcefully and stirred visibly. "We fought for what America still stands for," she stated fervently. "We lived through actual turmoil, battled for civil rights, and suffered wars. Your generation tweets, ours marched, but Leavitt wasn't backing down." The audience gasped in response to her scathing rejoinder. So why does our nation appear this way? Open borders, a faltering economy, and eroding values. Our purpose is to tidy up the mess. The studio was filled with murmurs as Goldberg was clearly rattling down her glass of water. The air was thick. Then, without anyone noticing, she got up, took off her mic, and headed for the door. "If the truth doesn't matter, this debate isn't worth having," she whispered behind her back. "I'm finished." She was gone after that. Social media was rocked by the dramatic walkout that was live-streamed. #WhoopiWalksOut became popular in a matter of minutes, igniting intense online discussion. She was commended by some for being brave and gutsy, saying she held her own and forced Whoopi to back down. Not a single post flinched. When she returned with information, Whoopi was infuriated. Another remarked, "No matter how difficult the truth becomes, you don't run from it," but Goldberg's followers weren't having any of it. She left the truth behind, but she left the absurdity behind. A user stated, "Whoopi doesn't have to sit there and entertain inflammatory rhetoric." After making her point, she walked away. Co-hosts hurried back to the studio to get things back in order. Leavitt spoke to the astonished crowd as the dust fell. Her smile was composed but assured, and she stated, "The truth isn't always easy, but we're here to keep the conversation going." While some remained silent, others cheered. Across media outlets, the fallout still dominates headlines and sparks heated discussions. In the live history of The View, it is already regarded by many as one of the most dramatic moments. And there's still a significant question. Did Karoline depart to make her point, or did Whoopi Goldberg have the right to go? The next voice from a distance. The conflict between Karoline Leavitt and Whoopi Goldberg is much more than just a television argument. It illustrates a far more profound rift between American political views and generations. The two women address distinct audiences. Whoopi's annoyance seems to stem from her conviction that history counts and that her generation's sacrifices, advancements, and hard-won triumphs shouldn't be disregarded. Her speech conveyed the idea that younger voices might occasionally ignore the nuanced factors that influence the liberties of today. In the meantime, Karoline Leavitt embodied a new school of political thinking that views urgent challenges like immigration, economic instability, and cultural conflict as indicators that the previous administration may have failed. Her audacious tone questioned the notion that simply because of what they went through, previous generations should be exempt from criticism. A significant question was raised by Whoopi's choice to leave the set. What does dropping out of a discussion mean? Some interpreted it as a refusal to listen to alternative opinions and a way to avoid conflict. Others saw it as a show of power and dignity, a rejection of what she might have perceived as a one-sided or fruitless conversation. Similarly, Leavitt's final words about continuing the talk may be read as either calm leadership or a sleet dig that fanned the flames. The split was reflected in the public's response. People on social media swiftly took sides. Her courage and clarity were commended by Leavitt's supporters. Goldberg's supporters praised her for eschewing what they perceived to be divisive speech. This exchange evolved into more than a contentious debate. It turned into a microcosm of the divisive political environment of today, where even televised discussions can become battlefields. Who won or who walked, however, may not be the true lesson. Perhaps it serves as a reminder that even in tough situations, forums like The View, where opposing viewpoints come together, ought to be spaces where civil discourse can flourish. What do you think? Is it a sign of weakness for B to leave a heated argument, or is it a sign of self-control when the discussion becomes unproductive? We appreciate you watching and participating in this crucial conversation. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you thought this was informative and would like to be up to date on the most recent discussions, news, and trends. In order to ensure that you never miss an update, remember to press the notification bell. See you in the upcoming video.